Plattsburgh. My name is John Gordon, and I am speaking to you as the chair of the Plattsburgh Tenants Advocacy Association. Last week, we canvassed the community for questions for each mayoral candidate, and we have prepared an interview with each candidate for you to view. The presentation for each interview will be different due to the planning process and the last-minute nature of these interviews. We have contacted both candidates over the weekend, and each scheduled us at their earliest convenience and gave us as much time as they were able. We met with Chris 2 days ago, Sunday evening, a short time after the questions were sent out, and our conversation with Scott occurred earlier this afternoon, today on Tuesday. Both candidates were offered the opportunity to review the questions beforehand. Now, here's what you came for. The first set of questions, we were figuring since you're limited on time, we try to consolidate some things so that we can cover as much ground as possible. So for section 1 on rent control / affordability, so the general question for that would be, do you think that there is a housing crisis in Plattsburgh? How would you define that? And you can go ahead and pull from the questions in that section to make your points.
Okay, well, first of all, thanks for having me, John. And Miles, how you doing, man?
Good.
Sorry, I just had to see the name. I'm at that too close or too far. So,
Yeah.
I apologize. I got some notes, so you'll excuse me if I refer to it, but
yeah, for sure.
I think, and I've mentioned this before when I spoke to housing throughout this campaign. I think there's a targeted housing shortage with income. And recently I had, through my research, I believe that there's also a situational housing shortage when it relates to single family homes. And if you allow me to expand on that, recently, I just saw a putty tat.
Oh, you muted, John.
Okay, we're still good? All right, so the targeted range income, the $500 to $700, and I've had multiple conversations, JCEO, United Way, and Plattsburgh Housing, sorry, where the income of the renter is in question. So people are looking for a targeted income range for their housing, a $500 to $750 range. I believe that we need more in that price range, and that's the most difficult price range to get because there's such a need. There's a limited amount. The landlords don't have a lot of properties that fit that need, but yet there's a lot of need in that price range. So I do believe that there is that targeted shortage there. If you want $1,200 to $2,000 a month housing, I'm pretty sure you could find that around the city. Secondly, with the single family homes with units, especially one single parent homes with children or one parent working with children, recently through my research, that is also an issue that has come to light for me that I wouldn't have known until I did additional research in this topic. So I believe that there are areas of concern when it revolves housing. It's just not a generic one caveat fits everything. I believe that there's situational problems, and these are the type of situations that I'm learning more and more about.
All right. So regarding that mid-range housing, you said the $750 to $800 housing. How would you see us bringing more of that into our community? Would you support some sort of rent control or stabilization, or?
I think rent stabilization is a much better way to go than rent control. Rent control has a lot of caveats, and that's the point. I believe under the new law that was just passed by New York State, 2019. That Governor Cuomo, it addresses that very specifically with rent stabilization. And researching that, I was unfamiliar with it until I saw your question, and then I looked and I found a whole 19-page PowerPoint on the new law that Governor Cuomo had passed. So thank you for pointing that out. It was an educational experience. But I believe that's the way to go. I believe a solid rent stabilization method of those two is much better than a rent control situation. The rent control, you have buildings built before 47, that has to be continuously occupied. There's a lot of caveats there that you got to jump through, and it's a New York City issue more than a Plattsburgh issue. But I believe if we can keep the cost of rent down where it's affordable and people can have a small increments and keep them more housing secure rather than housing insecure, that is a mechanism I would like to explore. I think that has more benefits to our community than just to let it go carte blanche, where you're paying $550 today and $750 tomorrow. That's not good business for anybody. But we also have to make sure that the tenants who are occupying these homes know exactly what services are out there for them as well. When I met with Bruce Garcia at the JCEO several months ago, when I was researching this topic originally, I did not know there was a rent assistance program. He educated me on that. When I talked to John Bernardi and the ALICE requirements and the ALICE statutes, I didn't understand what that was until he educated me. And just to give you a small caveat, when John was explaining what ALICE households were for me, when I was a young man with a single, I had a house and a child and a wife who was unemployed at the time after the child, we actually fell under those guidelines. And so I now understand, based on my own life experience, what that means because I lived it in real time. I was making $28,000 a year with a mortgage and a kid and a wife who was on disability. If I had a catastrophic problem with a vehicle, there's no way I could have paid my mortgage. So when you put it in perspective, that's personal. It's easier for people to understand. And once I had that epiphany, it was easier for me to understand where the problems lie because I lived it in real time.
All right. So following up into the next question, how would you support income-constrained seniors who are unable to keep up with the rent increases?
That's a great question. And I was doing the research and I want to get it right. So it just allow me, okay. So the New York State law grants for exceptions for rent increases to tenants who are senior citizens. Tenants or spouse or 62 years of age or older living in rent regulated apartments can combine household income. The senior citizen rate increase exemption, the SCRIE, is something that, again, I educated myself on, and that's a possibility for our seniors in this area. So there is a mechanism to assist them. Now here's the rub on that, is they have to know it exists. So one of the things I'd love to do, and I did this before when I was employed by the city, is I went into the senior housing and I help educate them on phishing scams, tech, contract problems. You know how people would sign contracts to do driveways, you pay $1,000 up front, and then they'd steal the money and take off. Well, one of the processes that I was involved with was educating our seniors. So they have to know this program exists. They have to know that what they're eligible for and how they can find assistance through the Senior Council, the Office of the Aging, the Police Department, the Interstate Attorney General's Office. There's mechanisms out there that can help people, but they have to know they exist. So we have to have a little bit more of a cooperative education component to outreach into our senior high rises and to our senior community.
Thank you. So what would you do to support local wage growth to offset the high cost of housing in our area? And how would you increase wages or address the shortage of well-paying jobs? And what steps would you take to align the affordability and the price of housing in our area?
Well, that's a great question, John. First of all, you and I had actually talked about this in one of our Zoom meetings before. And just full disclosure, John and I have met a couple times before this, so you guys understand that, you know, we've kind of run into each other before. So the one thing we have to do, it's essential for Plattsburgh survival, not for housing, but together as a community, is we need to start promoting ourselves better. We have more than 30 storefronts downtown and probably 50 plus around our community that are basically waiting for somebody to occupy them. So we need to promote Plattsburgh as a region. We need to partner with the town of Plattsburgh, the Chamber of Commerce in Clinton County, to let people know what we have here. In order for us to grow, we need to have people know where we're at. We have multiple shovel-ready storefronts that people can walk in, unlock the door, turn the lights on, and occupy space with the lowest electric rates in the country. We need to bring these men and women who are developers and investors here to Plattsburgh and take a regional approach. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to attract new business. Okay. The perfect example, and if I could give you this, it happened recently. Who's familiar with electas and what their problems are going on right now? You guys familiar with what happened over there?
I know that they had some structural issues and they've had to borrow the kitchen from Olive Ridley's.
That is exactly right. So we already have a spirit of cooperation within our community. One restaurant reached out and gave a kitchen to another restaurant who's literally having a wall fall in. And we need to really accentuate that positive. If we can partner up with the chamber, the town, and the city cooperatively and promote ourselves as a region, bring developers and investors here, we're going to create jobs. Now, it can't be retail jobs. It has to be tech, information, professional, trade. It has to be an assortment. The retail apocalypse is killing our country. You guys, you all know that. Amazon, right to your doorstep, takes away from going to the malls. We get it. So we can't entice those jobs to come see us. We want stable, long-term professional jobs. IT is, I think, the way to go. Information, gaming, programming. Oh, it's not programming. I just showed my age. It's coding. You know, so those are the type of people we would like to entice to come up here. So how do we do that? Increase quality of life, give them an economic opportunity that they didn't have prior, entice them with some incentives to take up residence here in the region of Plattsburgh, and have a school system that's ready to receive their children of quality. These are all things that they're looking for. The quality of life issues we need to work on because the city has eviscerated all of our quality of life through recreation. That is a priority we need to fix. But promoting ourselves as a region to get more development as far as job creation here is the way to address wages. The more jobs you have, the more competitive you have, the higher the wages go, the more opportunity people have to grow through employment. And I think that's first and foremost what we have to do. If we bring in the jobs, people have a better opportunity to higher wage. That's going to help them in the housing market because there's going to be more housing required, which means they're going to have to build more. And you have a higher payer job to help you until that situation transpires. So if you get a better paying job today, it helps you tomorrow. And a year from now, you have better opportunity because there's going to be more houses because there's more of a need. Does that make sense? It's kind of like a revolving up mechanism.
Yeah, thanks for your answer there. So jumping into the housing shortage development / access, I think you've covered a lot of this, but I do want to jump to question 4. Currently, ADA accessible housing is located primarily on the outskirts of the city. Right. What would you do to increase the quantity of affordable and accessible housing downtown or in areas that are closer to services and amenities?
Downtown's tough. There's zoning in place where it has commercial on the first level. And a lot of those buildings are so old with stairway and inability to bring in elevators, for an example. So that's a very tough mechanism to bring in ADA compliance because of the age and the infrastructure of the buildings. We would need to look at an area, and what I would like to suggest is something in the south end of the city for new development, for low to medium income housing for development based on the public model. There's already a big complex going up right now next to Seton Catholic, and I think that's a wonderful thing. But you have the Skyway Plaza. You have a lot of room for expansion. You have groceries, you have a drugstore, you have Family Dollar. You have mechanisms real close by that can assist you in your needs. And it also, one thing I've discovered with my conversations with many, many different groups in the city is there's a transportation problem in the city, especially when it comes to seniors. So if we can place housing that's not only ADA, but fits the income needs of our community within walking distance, a couple hundred yards of all their services, that's a win. And one of the mechanisms is looking at the state DOT building on Peru Street. They have between 12 and 14 acres there. Well, if we can swing a deal so the state moves to a different mechanism, we can put a beautiful housing complex right there, right on the border of the Skyway Plaza. So the Skyway Plaza will be able to promote themselves to bring in more business. The residents of these housing complexes will have walking distance to all their needs, ADA compliant because it's new construction. It's a win for everybody. How do we do that? Well, we need to sit down and have lots of conversations. I would need legal advice to guide me so I don't step on any landmines. And we have to promote Plattsburgh better as a region. All these things can be done with the right person sitting in the chair. It's a cheerleader. I've been saying that for months now. We need a better cheerleader to promote the needs of our area. And it's not the needs of the city. It's not the needs of the town. It's Plattsburgh as a region.
Awesome. Thank you. So the next section is on DRI and prime. I don't
Yep.
want to belabor it because I feel that we've all made abundant statements, but if you want to just go ahead and say a few things about that in general.
I believe, I think you guys know where I stand on prime. I'm not for the scape or the size of the project. It doesn't fit Plattsburgh. It doesn't fit our flavor, doesn't fit our needs. It's not that I'm anti-development. I just think that this project and the way it was developed and the way it progressed isn't the best for us right now. I think there's much better options out there. I think the original planning would have been better. I really do. The green space, the access to the river, a much smaller scale. It fits into the flair, the flavor of Plattsburgh. Now, I also have an issue with, and I've heard this on more than one occasion, that they refer to their housing units, their apartments as affordable housing. Now, when you're paying $1,200 a month for a 700 square foot apartment, that's not affordable. And I'll give you a personal example. My daughter is a Paul Smith graduate with a bachelor's degree. She works here at the university. She's in a career field. There's no way she can afford to live there. It's just impossible. So I really have an issue when I hear that referred to as affordable. It is not affordable housing. And they're not going to, it was 115 down to 109. I think they're going to have a very difficult time filling all those units based on what they're promoting. So I would like to see us change the narrative. I've written all this stuff down. You guys probably have seen it posted before. It's also on our website. Feel free to look at what I've already submitted out there officially, but we need to change the narrative where it comes to that project in housing.
Thank you for covering that. And into property maintenance and landlord-tenant relations / legislation. How would you address inadequate and/or untimely property maintenance by landlords? And how would you hold landlords accountable for the condition of their property?
You and I had also spoken this in the past. We have mechanisms in place. First of all, let me back up and talk about tenant-landlord relations. I think that there's an opportunity already presenting itself for both sides of the fence to sit down at a table and discuss. I think you guys have common grounds, the tenants and landlords. I believe that your position and their position against the registry law, I think you guys both see flaws in that legislation. I believe there's a mechanism where we can sit down, come to common ground. And I think if we talked across the table, we could work a lot of those things out to the betterment, not only of the law, but something that both sides can actually live with. Because I believe your side doesn't care for certain sections, and I know their side doesn't care for certain sections. So let's sit down and have a conversation. You already have a landlord-tenant committee. So let's expand on that, and let's actually do some real communicating and have some work done. There's positives to be had there. If they know and you know what each other wants, we can work towards a common goal. Now, there's also landlords who are absentee landlords who live in Michigan, Wisconsin, who are not in the area. That's one of the targets of the registry law, is to find out where these people are and what they're doing. They're absentees, and that's not good for anybody. We need to know where these people are and hold them accountable. The mechanism to do that is a strong building inspector's office. We also have a mechanism through police and fire for inspections and enforcement. And I believe that there are a lot more landlords who are interested in doing the right thing than those who are not. And I think if you talked to them at the table, you would see that that atmosphere come to light. Also, in doing my research, I found a Chicago, Illinois program that rates landlords and gives them incentives. So it's an A, B, C, and D system. I haven't worked out all the bugs, and I would need somebody with a legal opinion before I could actually push forward with this. But it has value. And if your landlords are rated A, B, C, and D, A being the best, D not so good, the A's and B's get incentives and they can continue to progress forward. And that means up to snuff on their codes, their properties look good, their garbage is picked up, you know, all the stuff you want good landlords to be, they would receive incentives to do more. The D landlords actually would have benefits removed from them until they took care of their deficient properties. And I think if we could tweak that to New York State standards, I think there's value there as well. It's in the planning process. I have it talked around with my committee members. So it's very new, but I believe that there's a model there that could have value for New York State and Plattsburgh.
Excellent. I do have a couple of follow-up questions regarding the registry law in particular.
Shoot.
One major point of concern for us as tenants is that the law in its current language allows landlords to self-certify their properties as habitable. And then it is then incumbent on our under-resourced inspection office to follow up on that self-certification and ensure that it is valid. Where do you stand on that language?
I have an idea in this, and I haven't worked out all the bugs, but John, I just got to turn you out, buddy. I'm sorry. This is an idea I'm kicking around, and I think it has merit, and I have to work out the bugs in my head. But if we're going to have self-inspections, the individual or individuals who are doing those inspections have to be New York State certified and insured. So let me throw this at you, and whatever landlord name you want, keep it in your head, and I'm their employee. And they send me to all the certifications, and I have the New York State certification saying that I can do these inspections. And I have insurance saying I can do this inspection. I may work for landlord A, but I am certified and I'm on record saying, yeah, I know what I'm doing. Now, here's the best part. The landlord A can hire me out to landlord B. So I just do all the inspections for landlord B. Landlord B pays landlord A. Landlord A hires me out to landlord C, and I do these inspections for landlord C. So you have a trained, certified inspector doing these self-inspections, but he's certified and insured. So his name or her name is on it, and they own it. And the landlords who are hiring this individual as an employee because of these self-certification could actually recoup the money of getting this individual trained by basically renting him out to other landlords. So I think there's a mechanism there. I mean, even if you guys explore it yourself as a group, or the PTAA, if you guys have your own certified inspector, and that person can come in and do inspections, there's a possibility of a mechanism is there as well. You see what I'm trying to say? I think not the janitor coming in and looking at the apartments, but somebody who has the exact same training and certification you need to certify an apartment with the insurance to back it up. That's who I'd like to see doing the self-inspections, not just a janitor or a maintenance guy. And I think if you look at 60% of our property in the city of Plattsburgh is rentals, and you have an enormous amount of workload on the shoulders of 3 people in the BI office, I don't know how they're going to do it. And I think this is a mechanism that takes some of the weight off their shoulders. This works within the spirit of the litigation, and everybody wins. The tenants get a certified, insured inspector to ensure their rights and their safety. The city gets the help they need by a certified inspector, and the landlord who hires the inspector has a way to recoup the money for training because he would rent them out to other people. That's an idea I was kicking around.
All right. Thank you for that explanation. The other follow-up question I had is, would you be supporting of a sort of proof that a landlord has attended a landlord-tenant law class as a requirement to get their permit under the registry law? Sort of, you have to prove you're able to drive before you get your license. That kind
That's
of
a great analogy, actually. I'm sorry. The training for the state, is it something that's out there? Is this state certified training mechanism? If the answer is yes, then yes. My only concern is some of these landlords, and we can use any A to Z that you'd like in your head, but some of these, oh, hold on a second. I think we're going to lose Zoom here in a minute. So let's say they own 200 apartments, and all they do is write the check, and they have a property management team to handle all their finances. So the actual owner, all he does is write checks, but the property management team is the day-to-day ops people. I would suggest that the day-to-day ops people be involved in that training, not just the top of the food chain, because the top of the food chain may have nothing to do with the property management. All he does is sign the checks. You see what I'm saying? That I think it would be better, a more palatable mechanism for the people doing the work to have that training. And it could be just a basic PowerPoint training, an hour PowerPoint that the state kicks out. We used to do that for hockey officials. Every year we had to have so many hours of training, but we sat in front of a PowerPoint, we just click through it and go through. As long as they could say they had it, great. But I think it has to be state approved, and it has to involve the people doing the work. So your little message just came up, said we're just about time to expire. So I don't know if you saw that.
I did not get one, but we'll see how it goes. We can always open a new meeting if we need to.
But just keep in mind, I'm a little time constrained.
Yeah, we'll work with your end. Yeah, so I mean, for example, one agency that I would look to help facilitate this training would be the Legal Aid Society.
Yes, North Country Legal Aid on Court Street. Yeah,
yes.
They're a valuable resource, and they provide services for those who can't afford it across the board. I've referred people there tons of time, but I believe that they're a valuable resource as well. The Rural Law Center also handles mediations. I mentioned them earlier, but if you guys have landlord-tenant mediations, the Rural Law Center actually can help you with that process as well. I believe they have an office on the Oval near City Court, or at least they did. I've been out of the game for about 3 years now.
Okay. Let's see here. So how would you support landlords in instances of tenant abuse of the property, tenant uncleanliness, and/or abuse of service animal regulations?
I don't like the word support. I would not support anybody who is intentionally violating law, if you will. I don't like that word, but I think what I would do if
I do believe you might have misunderstood. It's how would you support landlords in instances where tenants are doing these things?
Okay, that's fine. As you and I talked about in the past, I think that there's plenty of mechanisms here for services that can help in that that area. So, police notwithstanding, the building inspector, if there's a mechanism there that should be explored, law enforcement, obviously. There's also consolidated laws and real property laws that can be employed as well. When it comes to service animals, you know I'm a huge animal advocate. I went all over the state teaching crimes against animals and animal investigations against animal abuse all over New York State for 2 years. So anything I can do to promote animal rights, I'm going to do that. But I will not stand by and allow violations of law to occur. And if landlords come to me with these problems, I will direct them to the appropriate sites.
Cool. So I think we're getting to the end of your time available with us. So I want to jump to the last question.
3 or 4 minutes or so.
Yeah. So the last question here, it's a multi-parter. What are your thoughts on the following proposed actions that the city could take to balance the landlord-tenant relationship? And I'll go through them one at a time. So part A, would you expand the rental registry law to include all rental properties in the city of Plattsburgh so that all tenants may share in the benefits of its protection?
That would also affect the single family homes. Yes. Is that that's the question?
Correct. Yes, including single family rentals.
I believe there's value there. Yes. I think if you're renting, it should fall under that umbrella. We might have to tweak the language in the registry litigation a little bit, but the answer to the question is yes.
Okay. And then B, as a part of the rental permitting, I already asked you this question, so we'll skip to C.
Okay.
Would you support maintaining a supply of tenant rights pamphlets and other information at the finance department so that they are available to tenants who are signing up for new MLD accounts?
Yes, that information is readily available offline. It's not proprietary at all, but the answer is yes.
Okay. Excellent. So I think we are about ready to wrap up here. Miles, Marvin, did either of you have any final questions for Scott?
No, I'm good.
All righty. Thanks for sitting down with us, Scott. It was a pleasure.
Well, thanks for having us. Before I scoot, guys, a couple things. We've updated our website, teambb2020.com, if you guys want to go through that. Also, I have all these questions and I have written answers for most of them. If you give me some time to complete the document, I would be happy to send it back to you.
Yeah, you've got my email, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I believe they came from Shalise as well.
Yeah, so if you want to send that my way, I can post up your written answers on the PTAA page as well.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Alrighty. All right. Thank you, Scott.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Scott.
gentlemen. Enjoy your day.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Take care.